This is the International Space Station. For over 2 decades, it has been our home in outer space. But it's a home unlike any other. The ISS is the size of a football field. It orbits Earth at over 23 times the speed of sound. With a construction cost of around $160 billion USD, the space station is the most expensive structure ever built. And as impressive as all that sounds, it's actually the people that make the ISS exceptional. Human beings from all over the world living together in a place beyond borders, beyond atmosphere, beyond gravity. So let's take a look inside the ISS and see what everyday life is really like 250 miles above Earth. First, we need to get ourselves strapped into a spacecraft and prepare to blast off. To reach the ISS, you've got 2 options. Option 1, the Russian Soyuz, a compact capsule that's been flying crews to the station since the very beginning. It's a design in use since the late 1960s and has gone mostly unchanged since the Soviet Union era. Option 2, the SpaceX Crew Dragon, which features a sleek design on the outside, a spacious and comfortable layout inside, and is built for the modern era with mostly touchscreen controls. Welcome aboard. When the hatch finally opens, the crew floats into their new home. This is where the real experience begins. The ISS isn't the carpeted open concept layout you've seen in Star Trek. It's more like a floating tunnel system, a series of connected modules, each about the size of a small bus, arranged in a T-shaped layout. The American side includes Destiny, the main science lab, Unity, the central hub, and Tranquility, where life support and crew quarters live. Europe has the Columbus module, while Japan runs Kibo, a high-tech lab with its own research facilities. The Russian segment includes Zarya, the very first module ever launched, and Zvezda, the main living quarters and control center. In total, there are more than 15 pressurized modules offering about 13,700 cubic feet of habitable space, roughly the size of a 6-bedroom house. But don't expect much legroom. Every surface is packed with laptops, cables, camera gear, lab hardware, air ducts. There's no such thing as wasted space on the ISS. Moving around can be a challenge at first. Without gravity, concepts like up and down don't matter like they do on Earth. Your sense of direction actually comes from fluid sloshing around inside your ears. Once you begin floating in space, that fluid-based system gets scrambled and the brain becomes disoriented. But the crew adapts quickly. Color-coded handrails, clear labels, and lots of practice help astronauts move smoothly in the right direction. Once settled into the station, it's time to think about getting to work. Astronauts don't come here for leisure. Every hour of every day is strictly scheduled, and there's lots to do. But what is a day anyway? The ISS orbits Earth once every 90 minutes. That means astronauts experience 16 sunrises and sunsets every 24 hours. This rapid-fire day-night cycle can seriously mess with a person's internal clock, which is very bad for your health. To counter this, the crew follows a standard 24-hour Earth day. The ISS uses special lighting systems that mimic natural sunlight to help maintain sleep patterns. That's how they avoid orbital insomnia that plagued early space explorers. It's also important to combat boredom in space. That might sound trivial, but when people find themselves with nothing to do, we tend to become more impulsive, irritable, volatile, not what you want when everyone is confined to one space with no way out. To ensure no one has enough free time to get weird, astronauts' days are meticulously scheduled down to 5-minute chunks, thanks to the operations planning team at Mission Control. There are actually multiple ground control centers for the ISS located in America, Russia, Europe, and Japan. Deciding what time it is in space comes with its own problems. The international partners settled on Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, meaning the ISS operates in the same time zone as the United Kingdom. On the space station, your workday begins at 6 a.m. and lasts through 9:30 p.m. Astronauts typically start their day like everyone else, getting cleaned up and ready for work. But this is where life gets complicated. There is no shower. Without gravity, water won't go down the drain. It'll go everywhere. Water behaves unusually without gravity. It wants to stick together and form floating spheres. Water also wants to stick to other things. If you put water on your face, it sticks and won't drip off. Same with a toothbrush. To wash yourself, you basically put water on a cloth with some soap and do a sponge bath. Not luxurious, but effective. The weirdest part? You can't spit toothpaste out. It would just go flying in every direction, so you have to swallow it. Getting dressed is easy because you're not allowed to bring your wardrobe into space. Most astronauts wear the same t-shirt every day for about 2 weeks. Pants get worn for a couple of months. When the laundry gets too crusty, you don't do a wash, you just throw your clothes in the trash. Now let's talk about the oddly fascinating part of life on the ISS, the toilet. In space, you can't rely on gravity to pull things down, so the ISS uses suction. For solid waste, astronauts strap themselves to a small seat, really small. Once done, suction pulls everything into a plastic-lined container. Then you use a stick to jam your plastic bag of waste down into a storage bucket. These are changed every 10 days and eventually get ejected into space along with other trash, burning up in Earth's atmosphere. For urine, astronauts use a funnel attached to a vacuum hose designed for both men and women. Suction pulls the liquid into a tank where it's filtered and recycled into drinking water. On average, 70% of all water on the ISS is recycled. It would be impossible to operate in space without a closed water cycle. So yeah, you drink your own pee and everyone else's pee, but you also breathe it. Breathing recycled water. We're getting weird now, but this is fascinating. Oxygen is a precious commodity in space. The ISS has a ventilation system constantly filtering air, removing carbon dioxide, and recirculating it. But eventually, you use up all the oxygen. To solve this, a portion of recycled water is sent into an electrolysis machine. This uses electricity to split water molecules into base atoms, hydrogen and oxygen. The oxygen extracted from recycled pee is added back into the station's air supply. Mealtime and zero gravity. On the ISS, food typically comes in 2 main varieties. First, there's thermostabilized food packed in green pouches, basically a space version of military MREs. Second, there's freeze-dried food with all moisture removed. Astronauts simply add hot or cold water, rehydrate the meal, and it's ready. But astronauts can't eat anything they want. Bread is banned because crumbs can float around and clog equipment. Same with potato chips. The Simpsons got that one right. No soda either. Without gravity, carbonation doesn't separate in your stomach and just builds up inside you, leading to wet burps, essentially spontaneous vomiting. On Sunday evenings, everyone on the ISS, Russians, Americans, Europeans, Japanese, gets together for a ritual pizza party. You'll need the calories because every astronaut is required to put in 2 hours of exercise per day, cardio and resistance training. There are treadmills and stationary bikes with straps to hold you down. Resistance bands flex your muscles. There's even a crazy-looking piece of gym equipment that uses vacuum pistons to provide a full bodybuilding routine with squats, deadlifts, and bench press, all with up to 600 pounds of resistance. We do all this because in space, the body doesn't have to fight against gravity, so muscles weaken and bones lose density over time. This can make you sick while on the station, but becomes a very serious health problem once you return to Earth. Even with an athlete's exercise routine, the space environment has strange health effects. The most common is the space snuffles. Without gravity, bodily fluids tend to accumulate in your head, making you very congested. Another common problem taken more seriously is the effect of space on vision. We used to think this was caused by blood rushing to the head, but vision problems are now linked to changes in liquids surrounding the brain and spinal cord that create excess pressure inside the skull. The result? Astronauts become nearsighted. Anything in the distance gets blurry. With health and hygiene taken care of, it's time to get to work. The ISS is one of the most advanced science labs ever built. Its main mission is to explore science in zero gravity, a unique environment where researchers can study how the absence of gravity affects biological, physical, and chemical processes, things we can't replicate on Earth. For example, NASA has conducted studies on muscle atrophy and bone density to understand aging and disease on Earth. Astronauts themselves are both scientists and subjects, essentially becoming guinea pigs in this unique human experiment. They're also working on space agriculture, testing how crops like lettuce and mustard greens grow in orbit. If we're planning missions to Mars or beyond, astronauts will need to grow their own food. In 2015, ISS crew members harvested and ate the very first space-grown lettuce. But science isn't their only job. Astronauts also handle routine maintenance. They check life support systems, clean air filters, update software, and sometimes repair the walls of the space station. When something outside the spacecraft needs fixing, they suit up for a spacewalk, also known as extravehicular activity, EVA. Getting ready for a spacewalk is complicated. They spend around 4 hours of prep time checking equipment and making sure everything fits just right. The spacewalk itself typically lasts between 5 and 8 hours. This is an all-day commitment. And yes, the spacesuit includes a diaper. When you finally call it quits for the day, you get a chance to relax in your own personal sleeping quarters. You enter through one of 4 small doorways built into the walls of the habitation module. Inside the bunk, you get about as much space as an old phone booth. Every astronaut has their own laptop computer for keeping in touch with people on Earth. They typically keep personal items and tools in there as well. The only challenge is that everything needs to be attached to the wall with Velcro to stop it from floating around. You even need to secure your own body to the wall by zipping up into a tethered sleeping bag. Unlike typical camping gear, this bag has armholes that allow your limbs to float freely. That marks the end of our day on the space station, and like all good things, the ISS itself has an end date. NASA and its partners plan to bring it down around 2030. After over 3 decades in space, the station will make a controlled descent into Earth's atmosphere, burning up into smaller chunks that will sink to the bottom of the South Pacific Ocean. But although it may seem like the end, it really isn't. NASA has already shifted its focus to commercial space stations. Companies like Axiom Space and Blue Origin are working on private orbital labs. These platforms will carry forward the ISS legacy, hosting astronauts, running experiments, and maybe even welcoming tourists. The age of the International Space Station may be coming to a close, but the era of humanity living and working in space, that's just beginning.